The ice cracked beneath their boots as Captain Daniel Hayes led his team across the frozen surface of Kepler 442b. The moon stretched endlessly in all directions, a wasteland of frozen methane and ancient secrets buried deep beneath the surface. Daniel had been exploring strange worlds for 12 years now, but something about this place felt different. The readings they detected from orbit showed energy signatures that shouldn't exist on a dead moon. Patterns that looked almost deliberate. Dr. Lisa Morgan walked beside him, her eyes fixed on the scanner in her gloved hands. She was the best xenoarchaeologist Earth had ever produced, someone who could read the stories left behind by civilizations that died before humans even existed. Her breath formed clouds in the thin atmosphere as she spoke into her helmet communicator. The energy source is 3 kilometers down and it's getting stronger as we approach the coordinates. Kyle Bennett, their chief engineer, adjusted the drilling equipment on the massive transport sled behind them. He was young but brilliant, the kind of person who could fix anything with spare parts and determination. Sophie Carter, their linguistics expert, recorded everything with her portable cameras, documenting each step of their journey across the ice. The 4 of them had worked together for 3 years aboard the Horizon's Edge, and they moved like a well-practiced team. It took them 6 hours to reach the drilling site. The coordinates led them to a depression in the ice where the surface seemed darker, almost as if something beneath was absorbing light instead of reflecting it. Kyle set up the thermal drill and began boring into the ice. The drill bit through the frozen layers quickly at first, but as they went deeper, the ice became harder, denser, almost like it was resisting them. 2 days later, they broke through into a massive chamber. Lisa was the first one down the access shaft, descending on cables into the darkness below. Her headlamp cut through the black, revealing walls that gleamed like crystal. The chamber was huge, easily the size of a football stadium, and every surface was covered in symbols that glowed with a faint blue light. She could barely breathe as she realized what she was looking at. "This is incredible," she whispered. "This structure is at least 50 million years old." Daniel climbed down next, followed by Kyle and Sophie. They stood together in the center of the chamber, turning slowly to take it all in. The symbols seemed to move in the light, shifting and rearranging themselves as if they were alive. Sophie immediately began photographing everything, her hands shaking with excitement. "These aren't random decorations," she said. "This is a language, a complex one, maybe the most sophisticated writing system I've ever seen." Kyle found the power source in the center of the chamber. It was a crystalline structure about 3 meters tall, pulsing with soft blue light. The energy readings coming from it were off the charts, but it wasn't radioactive or dangerous. It was just humming with power after millions of years waiting for someone to find it. He set up his equipment and began analyzing its composition. "Whatever this is made of, it doesn't match anything in our database," he said. "The molecular structure is unlike any element we know." Lisa approached the walls carefully, running her fingers over the glowing symbols. They were warm to the touch, responding to her presence by brightening slightly. She pulled out her translation tablet and began scanning the patterns, feeding them into the analysis program. The computer worked for hours, comparing the symbols to every known language in human records, looking for patterns and connections. When the results came back, Lisa felt her heart skip. The computer had found partial matches to 3 different ancient languages from 3 different star systems, all of them dead civilizations that vanished millions of years apart. "That's impossible," Sophie said when Lisa showed her the results. "How could one language influence 3 separate species across time and space? Unless," she paused, looking up at the glowing walls, "unless this language came first. Unless whoever built this place taught all of them." Daniel contacted the Horizon's Edge in orbit, reporting their discovery. Commander Nathan Price, his tactical officer, responded immediately. "This is bigger than we thought," Nathan said through the static. "Earth is going to want everything you can document. Take your time and be thorough." Over the next week, the team worked around the clock to translate the symbols. Sophie discovered that the language was designed to be universal, using mathematical principles and visual patterns that any intelligent species could eventually decode. It was a message meant to last forever, meant to be understood by whoever found it. As they pieced together the meaning, the story began to emerge. The beings who built this place called themselves the Architects. They were the first species to travel between stars, the first to map the galaxy and meet other intelligent life. For millions of years, they guided younger species, teaching them, protecting them, helping them avoid the mistakes that could destroy civilizations. They saw themselves as gardeners of the galaxy, nurturing life wherever it appeared. But the architects had seen something that terrified them. Their mathematical models, their simulations of the future, all pointed to the same conclusion. Somewhere in the outer spiral arm of the galaxy, on a blue planet orbiting a yellow star, a species would eventually emerge that could change everything. This species would be unlike any other, capable of incredible kindness and terrible violence, able to create beauty and destroy it in the same breath. The architects called them the catalysts. Lisa found the specific warnings carved into a central pillar. The symbols described humanity in detail. Bipedal, bilateral symmetry, forward-facing eyes, tool users with complex language and abstract thought. But what frightened the architects wasn't human biology. It was human psychology. The message explained that humans possess something unique, an ability to change their fundamental nature within a single generation, to completely reinvent their beliefs and values and social structures. While other species evolved slowly over millions of years, humans could transform themselves almost overnight. This radical adaptability made humans unpredictable. The architects had run countless simulations, and the results were never the same. In some futures, humans became the greatest force for good the galaxy had ever seen, spreading peace and knowledge and cooperation to every corner of space. In other futures, humans became destroyers, consuming everything in their path, unable to control their own violent impulses. There was no middle ground. Humans would either save the galaxy or end it. Kyle discovered the worst part hidden in the deeper chambers. The architects hadn't just left a warning. They had built weapons, massive devices positioned in star systems across the galaxy, designed to activate if the catalysts ever became a threat. The weapons were linked to this vault, monitoring the galaxy for signs of the prophesied species, and according to the readings Kyle was getting, the weapons knew humans existed. They had been watching since humans first split the atom. Daniel felt sick as he read the translations. Everything about humans, their history, their wars, their struggles, it all matched the prophecy perfectly. The architects had feared humanity before humans even existed, and they had built a failsafe to destroy them if necessary. Sophie found the final message, the one that chilled them all to the bone. When the catalysts reach beyond their world, when they touch the stars and walk on foreign soil, the galaxy will face its greatest test. All species must decide, will they guide the catalyst toward light, or will they eliminate the threat before it grows too strong? The choice will define the future of all life. Daniel looked at his team in the flickering blue light. "We need to report this immediately," he said. But even as he spoke, Kyle's equipment detected something new. A ship had just entered orbit around the moon, a vessel that wasn't human. Someone else knew about this place, and they were coming down to investigate. Lisa checked her scanner and felt her blood run cold. The ship's configuration matched the Viridian Collective, one of the most powerful alien civilizations in known space. The Viridians had been watching human expansion for decades, always cautious, always maintaining distance, and now they were here, at the exact same ancient vault at the exact same time. "That's not a coincidence." Nathan's voice crackled over the radio from orbit. "They've known about this prophecy all along. They've been waiting to see if we would find it." Daniel made a decision. "Pack everything," he ordered. "We're taking all the data back to the ship. Whatever happens next, Earth needs to know the truth." Humanity had just discovered that they were feared by civilizations that existed long before humans walked upright, and that fear had been passed down through millions of years. The prophecy wasn't just ancient history. It was a loaded gun pointed at humanity's future, and someone was about to pull the trigger. The Viridian ship descended through the thin atmosphere like a predator circling its prey. Daniel watched from the entrance of the vault as the alien vessel landed 200 meters away from their drilling site, its hull shimmering with energy shields that made the air around it ripple and distort. He had seen Viridian ships before during diplomatic encounters, but never this close. Never in a situation where humans had something the aliens wanted. Lisa stood beside him, clutching her data tablets against her chest. "We should try to communicate peacefully," she said. "Maybe they're just here to study the vault like we are." Daniel wanted to believe her, but the way the Viridian ship had positioned itself, blocking their direct route back to the drilling equipment, told him this wasn't going to be a friendly archaeological discussion. The ship's boarding ramp extended and 5 Viridians emerged. They were tall, nearly 7 feet, with elongated limbs and skin that shifted colors like oil on water. Their faces were angular with large eyes that seemed to see in multiple spectrums at once. The leader wore robes that marked him as someone important, someone with authority. He approached slowly, his movements graceful and deliberate. Daniel activated his translation device and stepped forward. "I am Captain Daniel Hayes of the exploration vessel Horizon's Edge. We are conducting authorized research on this moon under Earth jurisdiction." His voice sounded small in the vast frozen landscape. The Viridian leader stopped 10 meters away. "I am High Chancellor Zephyros of the Viridian Collective. This site does not fall under any jurisdiction. It predates all modern claims by millions of years." His translated voice was calm but firm. "You have found something that concerns the entire galaxy, not just humanity." Kyle and Sophie joined Daniel at the vault entrance, forming a line between the aliens and their discovery. Nathan's voice came through their helmet communicators, urgent and worried. "Daniel, I've got 3 more Viridian ships entering orbit. This is starting to look like a blockade." Zephyros tilted his head, a gesture that his species used to show they were listening to something humans couldn't hear. "Your commander is correct. My government has dispatched additional vessels to ensure this situation is handled properly." He paused, his eyes fixed on Daniel. "You have translated the prophecy. You know what it says about your species?" Daniel felt his jaw tighten. "We know what it says. We also know it was written 50 million years ago by a civilization that never met a single human. It's not proof of anything." Zephyros moved closer, and Daniel could see something in those alien eyes that looked almost like sadness. The architects were the wisest species this galaxy has ever known. They studied the patterns of evolution and civilization for longer than any of us have existed. When they left a warning this specific, this detailed, we must take it seriously. Lisa stepped forward before Daniel could respond. "With respect, Chancellor, prophecies aren't science. They're guesses based on incomplete data. Yes, the architects described a species that sounds like humans, but that doesn't mean we're destined to become the monsters they feared. We have a choice in who we become." Zephyros regarded her with what might have been curiosity. "Dr. Morgan, I presume, your reputation as a scholar reaches even to Viridian space. Tell me, in all your studies of extinct civilizations, how many destroyed themselves through their own actions?" Lisa hesitated, and Zephyros continued. "The answer is 73%. Nearly 3/4 of all species that achieve spaceflight eventually annihilate themselves. The architects didn't fear humanity because you are unique. They feared you because you are efficient at destruction." Kyle couldn't stay quiet any longer. "That's not fair. Every species has a violent history. The Viridians fought wars before you achieved peace. Why do you get to judge us when you made the same mistakes?" For the first time, Zephyros showed something like emotion. His skin darkened to a deep purple. "You are correct. The Viridians nearly destroyed ourselves in a civil war that lasted 300 years. We killed billions of our own people before we learned to cooperate." He looked at each of them in turn. "That is exactly why we understand the danger. We know what a species is capable of when they cannot control their worst impulses. The difference is that our transformation took millennia. According to the prophecy, humans can change their entire civilization in decades. That speed, that unpredictability, makes you more dangerous than any species we have encountered." Daniel opened his mouth to argue, but his communicator crackled with Nathan's voice again, more urgent this time. "Daniel, we've got a situation. Earth just received word that an unauthorized Viridian fleet attacked Titan Station. 3,000 people are dead. The transmission is being broadcast across all channels." The words hit like a physical blow. Daniel stared at Zephyros, whose skin had gone pale, almost white. The Chancellor touched a device on his wrist and listened to something in his own language. When he looked up, his expression was grave. "War Master Krell has acted without authorization from the Collective Council. He represents a faction that believes the only way to save the galaxy is to eliminate humanity before you can spread further." Lisa's voice was shaking. "You're talking about genocide. You're talking about destroying an entire species because of what they might do in the future." Zephyros closed his eyes for a moment. "I do not agree with Krell's methods. I came here to understand, to find a diplomatic solution. But you must understand how this looks to the rest of the galaxy. For 20 years we have watched humanity expand into space. We have seen your wars continue even as you reach for the stars. We have watched you poison your own planet and fight over resources while your children starve. The prophecy describes all of this. It describes you perfectly." Sophie found her voice quiet but steady. "It also describes what we could become. The good parts of the prophecy talk about humans spreading cooperation and knowledge. Why does everyone focus only on the negative possibilities? Because hope is not a strategy, Zephyros said. Because the cost of being wrong is too high. If we give humanity the benefit of the doubt and you become the destroyers the architects feared, entire civilizations will burn. He gestured toward the vault behind them. The architects left weapons positioned across the galaxy for this exact scenario. They are connected to monitoring systems that track species development. Those weapons are designed to activate if certain conditions are met. Kyle felt ice in his stomach. What conditions? Zephyros met his eyes. Acts of unprovoked aggression against other spacefaring species, development of planet-destroying weapons, colonization through conquest rather than cooperation, and most critically, the discovery of the prophecy itself, followed by continued violent behavior. He paused. Krell's attack on Titan Station may have been the trigger. The architect weapons are beginning to power up in 6 different star systems. Daniel's mind raced. How long do we have? According to our sensors, the weapons will reach full power in 72 hours. Once activated, they will simultaneously target every human world, every colony, every ship in space. Your species will be sterilized from the galaxy in a matter of minutes. The team stood in shocked silence. Finally, Lisa spoke. There has to be another way. The architects wouldn't have built a test that was impossible to pass. There must be a way to shut down the weapons. Zephyros looked at the vault entrance. Perhaps the architects were thorough in their designs. If there is a shutdown mechanism, it would be deeper in the structure. But time is short and my government is divided on what action to take. Some, like myself, believe humanity deserves a chance to prove themselves. Others, like Krell, believe the risk is too great. Nathan's voice came through again. Daniel, Earth is mobilizing the defense fleet. Admiral Wells is ordering all ships to prepare for combat. She thinks the Viridians are going to attack. Daniel felt the situation spiraling out of control. If Earth and the Viridian Collective went to war, it would only prove the prophecy right. Humanity would be showing the galaxy exactly what the architects feared. He made a decision that went against every protocol he had ever learned. Chancellor Zephyros, I am inviting you and your team to enter the vault with us. Let's search for this shutdown mechanism together. If we work as allies instead of enemies, maybe we can show the galaxy that the prophecy doesn't have to come true. Zephyros studied Daniel for a long moment. His skin shifted through several colors before settling on a soft blue that his species used to indicate consideration. Your offer is unexpected. It goes against your military's orders to secure this site, does it not? Daniel nodded. Yes, it does. But following orders that lead to war won't save anyone. I'd rather be court-martialed for trying to find peace than be remembered as the captain who helped start a galactic conflict. Very well, Zephyros said. We will work together. But know this, Captain Hayes. If we cannot find a solution in time, my government will have no choice but to allow the architect weapons to activate. They will not risk the safety of the entire galaxy to save one species. Then we better work fast, Daniel said, and led the way back into the glowing chamber where ancient warnings waited to be fully understood. The deeper chambers of the vault stretched endlessly into the ice, corridors lined with crystalline walls that pulsed with ancient power. Daniel led the combined team through passages that seemed to shift and change as they walked, the architect technology responding to their presence in ways none of them fully understood. Lisa and Sophie worked alongside 2 Viridian scholars, comparing notes and sharing translation methods that their species had developed independently over thousands of years. Kyle had struck up an unlikely partnership with a Viridian engineer named Torin, both of them equally fascinated by the power systems that kept the vault functioning after millions of years. They moved through the corridors with scanning equipment, mapping energy flows and searching for any sign of a control mechanism that could shut down the distant weapons. Zephyros walked beside Daniel in silence for a long time before finally speaking. Your decision to invite us in was either very brave or very foolish, Captain. His tone wasn't mocking, just observational. On Earth, we would call it a calculated risk, Daniel replied. Sometimes the only way to break a cycle of mistrust is for someone to take the first step. The Chancellor's skin shifted to a thoughtful green color. The Viridians have an old saying that translates roughly as trust must be earned through time, not granted through hope. But perhaps your species operates differently, Lisa called out from ahead, her voice echoing through the crystalline corridors. I found something, another chamber with different symbols. These ones look more recent, like they were added after the original construction. The team gathered in a smaller room where the walls were covered in layers of text, each layer written in a different language. Sophie recognized 3 of them immediately as belonging to extinct civilizations, species that had visited this vault thousands of years apart. They all left messages, she said, running her fingers over the glowing symbols. They all tried to understand the prophecy and what it meant. One of the Viridian scholars, an older female named Mistral, began translating the oldest messages. This one is from the Korath Empire, she said. They existed 40,000 years ago and achieved a level of technology far beyond what humans currently possess. According to their message, they too were warned by the architects about a coming threat. They spent centuries searching for the prophesied species, believing they could prevent the danger by finding and guiding them early. What happened to the Korath? Kyle asked. Mistral's skin turned a somber gray. They destroyed themselves fighting over the question of what to do when they finally found a species that matched some of the prophecy's descriptions. Half believed in preemptive elimination, half believed in nurturing and guidance. Their civil war lasted 300 years and ended with their complete extinction. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the weight of that history. Zephyros spoke quietly. 3 other civilizations left similar messages in vaults across the galaxy. All of them tore themselves apart over the same question. The prophecy itself is a weapon, spreading fear and mistrust wherever it is found. Lisa moved to another section of wall where newer symbols glowed brighter. This message is much more recent, maybe only 1,000 years old. She worked with Sophie and Mistral to translate it, and as the meaning became clear, her eyes widened. It's a warning from a species called the Centauri. They claim to have found the complete prophecy, not just fragments. According to them, the architects designed this as a test. Daniel stepped closer. What kind of test? Sophie read from her translation tablet. The architects watched civilizations rise and fall for millions of years and noticed a pattern. Every species that achieved spaceflight eventually reached a critical moment, a choice between cooperation and domination. Most chose domination, driven by fear and the desire for security through strength. The architects wanted to create a scenario that would force species to actively choose cooperation, even when it seemed dangerous. Torin made a clicking sound that the translation device rendered as bitter laughter. So they created a prophecy that spreads fear and mistrust, knowing it would cause exactly the conflicts they claimed to want to prevent. That is either brilliant or insane. Kyle was studying the energy readings on his scanner and something caught his attention. The power flow patterns are changing. Whatever the weapons are doing in those distant star systems, it's affecting the vault here. The 2 systems are connected somehow. Zephyros immediately contacted his ship in orbit. Report status on the architect weapons. The response came back in seconds. They have reached 47% power capacity, and the rate of increase is accelerating. Projected time to full activation is now 60 hours. Lisa felt panic rising in her chest but forced herself to focus. The Centauri message says there's a way to shut down the weapons. The test isn't about being perfect, it's about making the right choice when everything is pushing you toward the wrong one. The shutdown mechanism requires 2 things: proof that different species can work together under pressure, and a conscious rejection of the easy path of violence. Daniel looked around the chamber at humans and Viridians working side by side. We're already doing the first part. We're cooperating, sharing information, treating each other as equals. That has to count for something. But the second part is harder, Mistral said. Rejecting violence when your survival is at stake goes against every evolutionary instinct. Out there in the galaxy right now, your species and mine are preparing for war. War Master Krell has already killed thousands of humans. Your Admiral Wells is mobilizing Earth's entire fleet. How do we stop that momentum? Nathan's voice crackled through the communicators. Daniel, you need to hear this. I'm patching through a transmission that's being broadcast across all human channels. The voice that came through was Admiral Patricia Wells, her tone grave and determined. This is Admiral Wells of Earth Defense Command. Following the unprovoked attack on Titan Station, I am authorizing all fleet commanders to engage any Viridian vessels that enter human-controlled space. We will not allow genocide to be committed against our species. Any alien ship that approaches our worlds will be considered hostile. This is not a war we wanted, but it is a war we will fight. Zephyros received a similar message from his government. The Viridian Council has voted to support War Master Krell's position. They believe humanity has proven the prophecy correct through continued aggressive behavior. Unless the Architect weapons are deactivated within 60 hours, the Viridian fleet will not interfere with their activation. Daniel felt the weight of the situation crushing down on him. Both sides were convinced they were acting in self-defense. Both sides were terrified of what the other might do, and that fear was pushing them toward the exact outcome the prophecy predicted. "We have to break this cycle," he said. "We have to find the shutdown mechanism and prove that another way is possible." Lisa had been studying the Centauri message more carefully and found something others had missed. "There's more here, a riddle or puzzle of some kind. The architects built the shutdown into the vault's core, but accessing it requires solving a problem that has no right answer." Sophie leaned in to read over her shoulder. "It says 2 paths lie before you. One offers power to defend your people, the other offers vulnerability and hope of peace. Choose power and the weapons remain active, ready to be controlled by whoever proves strongest. Choose vulnerability and the weapons deactivate completely, leaving all species defenseless against future threats. The choice must be made freely without coercion by representatives of the species being tested." Kyle understood the trap immediately. It's designed to be impossible. Any logical species would choose the power option, because giving up your ability to defend yourself seems like suicide. But choosing power proves you're exactly what the prophecy warned about. Torin added his own analysis. The architects created a perfect paradox. Species that choose security through strength demonstrate they cannot be trusted with power. Species that choose trust demonstrate they have learned to transcend their base instincts. But choosing trust means gambling everything on hope. Zephyros placed one of his long-fingered hands on the crystalline wall. "My people failed this test once before, long ago. We were not the subjects of the prophecy, but we faced a similar choice during our civil war. We chose power, chose to fight until one side was completely destroyed. It took us 300 years and billions of deaths to learn that security through dominance is an illusion." Daniel thought about Earth's history, about all the times humans had faced similar choices and made the wrong decision. Every war started because someone felt threatened. Every arms race began because someone wanted security. The pattern repeated endlessly, and it had brought humanity to the edge of extinction more than once. Lisa found the entrance to the core chamber, a doorway that only appeared when multiple species stood before it together. Inside, a crystalline pedestal held 2 options displayed in universal mathematical symbols that anyone could understand. Above one option, holographic projections showed humanity gaining control of the architect weapons, becoming the dominant military force in the galaxy. Above the other option, the projections showed all the weapons shutting down permanently, leaving every species vulnerable but equal. Daniel stared at the choices and felt the weight of every human life debt. The moment Daniel's hand touched the symbol, the entire vault began to hum with energy. The crystalline walls brightened until the chamber was flooded with brilliant blue light, and everyone shielded their eyes against the sudden intensity. Kyle's equipment went wild with readings as massive amounts of power began flowing through systems that had been dormant for millions of years. "The shutdown sequence has started," Torin said, reading the data streams. "But it's going to take time. The weapons are distributed across 6 star systems and they're already at 52% power. The deactivation signal has to reach each one individually and override their core programming." "How long?" Zephyros asked, his skin flickering between colors as he processed the stress of the moment. "At least 48 hours, maybe more." Kyle looked up from his scanner with worry in his eyes. "And there's a problem. During the shutdown window, humanity is completely vulnerable. If anyone decides to attack while the process is running, there's no way to reverse the decision. We're committed." Daniel felt his stomach drop, but he kept his expression calm. "We knew this was a one-way choice. We made it, and now we have to trust that it was the right one." He activated his communicator. "Nathan, this is Daniel. We've initiated the shutdown sequence for the architect weapons. I need you to send a message to Admiral Wells immediately." Nathan's response was cautious. "What kind of message?" "Tell her we've chosen to deactivate all the ancient weapons, including any that might have defended Earth. Tell her we've made ourselves vulnerable in the hope that other species will see this as proof that humanity can be trusted." Daniel paused. "And tell her that if she continues preparing for war, she'll undo everything we're trying to accomplish here." There was a long silence before Nathan spoke again. Daniel, she's going to think you've lost your mind. Half of Fleet Command already wants your head for cooperating with the Viridians. This is going to look like surrender. It's not surrender, Daniel said firmly. It's a gamble that peace is possible if someone has the courage to take the first real step. Send the message. Zephyros was having a similar conversation with his own government through a private channel. Daniel couldn't understand the Viridian language, but he could see the Chancellor's skin going through rapid color changes that indicated stress and conflict. When Zephyros finally ended the transmission, he looked exhausted. The Viridian Council is divided. Some see your choice as proof that humans can transcend their violent nature. Others see it as a tactical trick, a way to appear weak while hiding other weapons. Lisa had been studying the holographic displays that appeared after Daniel activated the shutdown. There's something else here, another message from the architects. This one is addressed to whoever makes the choice we just made. She began translating aloud. To those who choose vulnerability over power, know that your decision has been recorded and transmitted across the galaxy. Every spacefaring species will learn what you have done. Some will respect your courage, others will see it as weakness to exploit. The test is not complete with this single choice. You must now prove through action that your decision was genuine. Sophie found additional text on another display. It talks about a trial period. The weapons will take 48 hours to fully deactivate, and during that time the species being tested must demonstrate consistency between their choice and their behavior. Any act of aggression, any attempt to gain advantage through force will reactivate the weapons immediately. Mistral translated a warning in older architect script. 3 species in galactic history have reached this point. 2 of them failed the trial period when factions within their governments attempted to seize power during the vulnerability window. Only 1 species successfully completed the test. Who were they? Kyle asked. What happened to the species that passed? The Centauri, Mistral said quietly. The same species that left the message warning about the test. They passed 1,200 years ago, and the architects granted them access to advanced technology and knowledge. They became one of the most enlightened civilizations in the galaxy. Then why haven't we heard of them? Daniel felt a cold suspicion forming. Because they were destroyed 600 years ago, Zephyros answered. Not by war or violence, but by a natural phenomenon. A gamma ray burst from a dying star that sterilized their entire home system. He looked at Daniel meaningfully. They had deactivated all the architect weapons as part of passing the test. When the disaster came, they had no defenses that could save them. The room went silent as everyone understood the full weight of what that meant. Choosing peace didn't guarantee survival. It just meant choosing to face the universe without the crutch of overwhelming force. Lisa broke the silence with determination in her voice. The Centauri knew the risks and they made their choice anyway. They believed that living with integrity was more important than living in fear. We have to honor that same principle. Nathan's voice came through the communicator again, urgent and alarmed. Daniel, War Master Krell just broadcast a message to the entire galaxy. He's claiming that the shutdown of the architect weapons is a human trick, and he's launching an assault on Earth. He's got 200 ships and they're already in hyperspace. They'll reach the solar system in 36 hours. Zephyros immediately contacted his fleet. This is High Chancellor Zephyros. Krell is acting without council authorization. All loyal Viridian ships are ordered to intercept and stop his fleet by any means necessary. But even as he gave the orders, his expression was grim. He has support from hardliners across multiple species. My ships may not be enough to stop him. Daniel felt panic trying to take hold but forced himself to think clearly. How many ships does Earth have to defend itself? Nathan checked his tactical display. Admiral Wells has 75 combat vessels in the solar system. Another 30 spread across the outer colonies. Against 200 Viridian warships with superior technology, we'll be lucky to last an hour. Then we need to change the equation, Daniel said. We need allies. He turned to Zephyros. You said some members of the council supported our choice. Can they help? Zephyros considered for a moment. There are younger species who remember being in humanity's position, judged and found wanting by their elders, the Lumina, the Thalans, the Chirics. They might be sympathetic, but asking them to risk war with the Viridian hardliners is asking a great deal. Lisa had an idea. What if we broadcast everything? Not just the prophecy in our choice, but the whole truth about what the architects really wanted. Let every species in the galaxy see what we've done and why. Make it impossible for Krell to spin this as human deception. Sophie was already setting up the equipment. I can use the Vault's communication systems. They're designed to broadcast across the entire galaxy. That's how the shutdown signal is being sent to all the weapons. We can piggyback our message on the same carrier wave. Kyle and Torin worked together to boost the signal strength, while Lisa prepared what she wanted to say. Daniel watched her organize her thoughts, saw the scholar becoming an advocate for an entire species. When everything was ready, Lisa stood before the recording equipment and began to speak. My name is Dr. Lisa Morgan, and I am a human being from the planet Earth. 48 hours ago, we discovered an ancient prophecy that warned the galaxy about my species. The prophecy said humans would either become great healers or great destroyers, and it left weapons in place to eliminate us if we chose the wrong path. She paused, letting the weight of those words settle. We found those weapons, and we found the choice the architects left for us. We could take control of the weapons and use them to make ourselves the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Or we could deactivate them completely and trust that other species would see our vulnerability as proof of our peaceful intentions. Lisa's voice strengthened as she continued. We chose to deactivate the weapons. We chose to make ourselves vulnerable. We chose trust over power, hope over fear. Some will say this makes us weak, that we're fools to gamble our survival on the goodness of strangers. But we believe the architects were testing something more important than tactical thinking. They were testing whether any species could break the cycle of fear and violence that has destroyed so many civilizations before us. She looked directly into the camera. Humans are not perfect. Our history is filled with terrible mistakes, wars, and cruelty and destruction, but it's also filled with moments of incredible compassion, sacrifice, and hope. We are capable of both great evil and great good, and every day we choose which path to follow. Today we choose to believe that the galaxy can be better than the prophecy predicted. We choose to believe that trust can be stronger than fear. Lisa's voice became urgent. Right now, War Master Krell is leading a fleet to destroy Earth because he believes the prophecy must be fulfilled. He believes humanity is too dangerous to be allowed to survive. But if he succeeds, he won't be preventing the prophecy. He'll be proving that fear and violence are the only truth in the universe. He'll be showing every young species that the galaxy is a place where the strong destroy the weak and trust is punished. The recording showed Lisa's face, human and vulnerable and determined. We are asking for help, not because we deserve it, but because the principle of giving species a chance to grow and change is worth defending. The architects built their test to be. The fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of angry hornets. 200 Viridian warships led by War Master Krell's flagship, a massive vessel bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Admiral Patricia Wells watched from the bridge of her command ship as the enemy fleet took up attack positions around Earth, and for a moment she felt the weight of every human life depending on her decisions. Earth Defense Command. This is War Master Krell. You have 30 minutes to evacuate all military vessels from Earth orbit. After that time, we will begin systematic destruction of your military infrastructure. Any attempt to resist will result in immediate escalation to civilian targets. His translated voice was cold and mechanical, devoid of any emotion. Wells looked at her tactical display and felt her heart sink. Her 75 ships were positioned in defensive formations around Earth, but they were hopelessly outmatched. The coalition fleet that had arrived to help, ships from the Lumina and Thalons and Chirix and a dozen other species, added another 100 vessels. But most of them were lightly armed exploration ships, not warships, against Krell's battle-hardened fleet. They would last minutes at best. Nathan's voice came through from the horizon's edge. Still in orbit around Kepler 442b. Admiral, Captain Hayes requests permission to speak to War Master Krell directly. Wells wanted to refuse, wanted to tell Daniel to stay out of military operations, but she was out of options and willing to try anything. Granted, she said. Put him through on an open channel. Daniel's voice filled the communication networks of every ship in the solar system. War Master Krell, this is Captain Daniel Hayes. I'm the officer who activated the shutdown sequence for the architect weapons. I know you think we're trying to trick the galaxy, but I'm asking you to look at what's actually happening here. We made ourselves vulnerable, and dozens of species came to stand with us. That's not weakness, that's proof that cooperation is possible. Krell's response was immediate and harsh. Proof? All I see is species too naive to understand the threat you pose. The prophecy was clear about what humans would become, and I will not allow that future to unfold. Your choice to deactivate the weapons only proves you're clever enough to manipulate others, nothing more. Kyle was monitoring the architect weapon systems from inside the vault, and the readings made him nervous. The shutdown sequence is at 73% complete, but if fighting breaks out near Earth, the violence will trigger a reactivation protocol. The weapons will interpret any battle as proof that the choice wasn't genuine. Lisa understood the trap immediately. Krell is trying to force Earth to fight back. If we defend ourselves, the weapons reactivate and destroy us anyway. If we don't defend ourselves, his fleet destroys us. Either way, humanity dies and he gets to claim the prophecy was right all along. Zephyros had been working his own channels, trying to rally support within the Viridian government. He finally received a response that gave him hope. The Council has ordered all loyal fleet elements to stand down Krell's forces. Reinforcements are on the way, but they won't arrive for another 6 hours. We need to delay the battle until they get here. Daniel had an idea that was either brilliant or insane. What if we don't fight at all? What if we order all ships to power down weapons and shields? We make it impossible for Krell to claim we're being aggressive. Nathan's voice was incredulous. That's suicide. The moment we drop shields, we're completely defenseless. One shot from any of those warships would tear through our hulls like paper. That's exactly the point, Lisa said, understanding Daniel's thinking. The architects designed the test to require absolute commitment. We chose vulnerability, and now we have to actually be vulnerable, completely and totally with no backup plan. Admiral Wells listened to the conversation and felt every instinct screaming at her to reject the idea. Her entire career had been built on the principle of never leaving her people defenseless, never giving up a tactical advantage, always maintaining the ability to fight back. What Daniel was suggesting went against everything she had ever learned about military strategy. But she also understood that conventional military strategy had brought humanity to the edge of extinction. The old ways of thinking, the endless cycle of arms races and preemptive strikes and security through strength, had failed. Maybe it was time to try something that seemed impossible. She opened a fleet-wide channel. This is Admiral Wells to all Earth defense vessels and Allied coalition ships. I am ordering all ships to power down weapons and shields immediately. Move to peaceful formation around Earth and transmit a message of non-aggression on all frequencies. She paused, knowing how insane this would sound to her officers. We will not fire first. We will not fire at all. If War Master Krell chooses to attack defenseless ships, let the galaxy see what that means. The responses came back within seconds, a mixture of confusion, protest, and reluctant acceptance. One by one, the human ships powered down their weapons. The coalition vessels followed suit, creating a defensive wall around Earth made not of weapons but of ships willing to die for a principle. Krell watched this development with suspicion. This is a trick. You're hiding weapons waiting for us to come closer. But his sensor officers confirmed that every human and coalition ship was genuinely defenseless. There were no hidden weapons, no tactical advantage, just vulnerable ships and the people inside them trusting that their choice meant something. For the first time, Krell hesitated. His entire justification for this attack was based on the idea that humans were dangerous, that they would choose power over peace. But here they were, completely vulnerable, making a choice that went against every survival instinct. He had expected a fight, expected to prove his point through glorious battle. This passive resistance was something he hadn't prepared for. One of Krell's ship commanders contacted him on a private channel. War Master, if we fire on defenseless ships, we become the aggressors. We become exactly what we claim to be preventing. How does that serve the prophecy? Krell's response was angry but uncertain. They're manipulating us, can't you see that? They know we won't fire on defenseless targets, so they've removed their weapons to escape justice. But another commander joined the conversation, then another, and soon half his fleet was questioning the orders. These weren't just human ships in front of them, but vessels from dozens of species, all choosing to stand together in vulnerability. It was unprecedented in galactic history, and it was making Krell's hardliners doubt their certainty. Back in the vault, Kyle saw something remarkable on his monitors. The architect weapons have stopped their reactivation protocols. The system is recognizing that no violence is occurring despite the perfect conditions for conflict. The shutdown sequence is accelerating. Sophie checked the timeline. If the current rate holds, full deactivation will complete in 3 hours instead of the projected 48. The architects must have built in rewards for species that committed fully to their choice. Zephyros received word that loyal Viridian forces had arrived at the edge of the solar system, but he ordered them to hold position. "Let's see if War Master Krell will make the right choice on his own," he said. "Forcing him to stand down will only breed resentment and future conflict." The standoff continued for 2 hours, with Krell's fleet in attack position and the defensive wall of powered-down ships waiting silently. The tension was unbearable, and several times it seemed like Krell would give the order to fire. But each time he hesitated, watching the sensor readings that showed complete vulnerability, complete trust. Finally, a transmission came from deep within Krell's fleet. It was Commander Salus, his second-in-command. "War Master Krell, this is a formal mutiny. Your orders violate the fundamental principles of the Viridian Collective. We will not massacre defenseless beings who have shown more courage than we possess. Stand down or you will be removed from command." Krell tried to override the mutiny, but more than half his fleet sided with Salus. The formation broke apart as ships refused to follow attack orders. Krell's flagship found itself isolated and surrounded by his own vessels, now pointing weapons at him instead of at Earth. Salus opened a channel to Admiral Wells. "On behalf of the Viridian fleet, I apologize for this unprovoked aggression. War Master Krell will face trial for his actions. Your courage has shown us something we thought impossible." The moment Krell's fleet stood down, the final architect weapon completed its shutdown sequence. Kyle watched the readings flatline as ancient technology that had waited 50 million years finally powered down permanently. "It's done," he said quietly. "The test is over. We passed." Daniel felt exhaustion wash over him as the adrenaline of the last few days finally faded. "We didn't pass alone," he said. "Every species that stood with us, everyone who chose to believe that trust was possible, they all passed together." Lisa found the final message from the architects, hidden in the vault's core systems and only accessible after successful completion of the test. She read it aloud to everyone present. "To the species who made the choice and survived the trial, you have proven something rare and precious. You have shown that intelligence can transcend fear, that cooperation can overcome conflict, that trust can be stronger than weapons. The weapons are now deactivated permanently, and all the knowledge we collected over millions of years is yours too.